Hello everyone, my name is Maulartoya Hidayatullah, and in this video, I would like to take you through the story of the Republic of Botswana. If we go back to the beginning before Botswana even exists as a country, the land has home to the San, or Bushmen, who lived as a gun hunter-gatherer for thousands of years. Later, Bantu-speaking groups, especially the Swana people, arrived and formed small organized chiefdom led by traditional rules called Kosi. These societies already had structure of consultation and council-based decision-making, which is important because this early political culture of negotiation and consensus later influenced Botswana's modern diplomacy. In the 19th century, Southern Africa entered a period of rising tension. European powers were competing for territory, and Boer settlers from the south were expanding northwards. The Swana chiefdom realized that if they did nothing, they could be conquered or absorbed into hostile regimes. And in this way, the first major act of diplomacy took place. Before the modern states even exist, three Swana chiefs, Hama III, Sebele I, and Bathul I, traveled all the way to London in the 1880. They pled directly with the British Crown for protection. Their diplomatic efforts succeeded, and in 1885, Britain established the Bechuanaland Protectorate. This moment is very important to understand the character of Botswana. When many African territories were colonized through force, Botswana entered the British span through diplomacy. The British handled foreign affairs and defense, but internal governance remained the most under Swana customary leadership. Because of this arrangement, Botswana preserved its political identity, and this institutional continuity would later help in transition into independence more smoothly as the most African state. After World War II, nationalism spread across Africa, and Bechuanaland also began to prepare for self-rule. However, Botswana faced a special challenge. It was landlocked, poor, sparsely populated, and surrounded by states still under colonialism or apartheid. Independence, therefore, required not only political negotiation but also diplomatic caution. This is where Seretse Khama emerged, a traditional leader who transformed into a modern nation builder. Under his leadership, Botswana negotiated independence peacefully and officially became a sovereign state on September 13, 1966. But independence was only the beginning of the struggle. At the moment it became a country, Botswana was considered one of the poorest nations in the world. It had only a few kilometers of paved roads, extremely limited healthcare and education system, and almost no industrial base. Diplomatically, Botswana had to survive a region dominated by apartheid, South Africa, and white minority Rhodesia, both of which were unfriendly to reformist African states. Because of this, the new Botswana adopted a cautious, defensive foreign policy in early years. A priority was survival, protecting its borders, avoiding confrontation, and gradually building international recognition. Everything began to change in 1967, when diamonds were discovered, but the real turning point was not the discovery itself, it was the wise diplomatic choice made afterwards. Botswana did not simply allow foreign cooperation to extract resources freely. Instead, it negotiated a joint partnership with de Beers, forming Botswana with a 50-50 ownership structure. This ensured that mineral wealth flowed into the state's budget and could be reinvested in development. And once the state had financial capacity, its diplomacy also evolved. During the presidency of Seretse Khama, and especially under his successor, Kwet Masire, Botswana shifted from diplomacy for survival to diplomacy for development. Instead of isolating itself, Botswana built cooperative relationships with developed countries for economic assistance, infrastructure, and education. Meanwhile, it also helped to build regional institutions like what later became the Southern African Development Community, or SADC. In this period, Botswana slowly developed a reputation for being stable, trustworthy, and well-governed, a reputation that continues to strengthen its diplomacy today. As the country's economy grew stronger, especially throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Botswana began to take on a more confident diplomatic role, not as military power, but as more voice in the region. Under President Festus Mogae and later Ian Khama, the country became known for its principled stance on governance, anti-corruption, and human rights. Botswana did not hesitate to criticize authoritarian behavior in Africa, even when larger countries remained silent. During the late 1990s and 2000s, Botswana was one of the few African governments to openly challenge the dictatorship in Zimbabwe under Robert Mugabe. This was not lot of aggressive diplomacy, but it was principled diplomacy, grounded in Botswana's belief that democracy and accountability are not negotiable. Diplomacy also shaped the economy, as Botswana depended relations with the European Union, the United States, and later Asian economies like China and India. It was able to diversify cooperation beyond mining into tourism, conservation, and international trade. The government established a sovereign wealth fund, expanded foreign service training, and used diplomacy to protect wildlife and natural ecosystem, particularly in the famous protected area like the Okavango Delta. The Okavango Delta is one of the clearest examples of how Botswana diplomacy intersects with national identity. Rather than exploiting the delta for commercial agriculture or heavy development, Botswana positioned itself as a leader in ecotourism and environmental preservation. UNESCO recognition further strengthened Botswana's image as a country that does not simply profit from nature, but protect it as part of its diplomacy and international branding. What made all of this possible were the leaders behind the policy, like Khama built the foundation, Masire expand the regional influence, Festus Mogae strengthens credibility abroad, Ian Khama gave Botswana a moral voice, and Masisi is now positioning the country for technological and economic transformation. Through them, we can see how diplomacy and state building in Botswana are deeply connected, how negotiation has been the thread tying together its survival, its growth, and its future. Today, Botswana stands as one of Africa's strongest examples of how diplomacy, when combined with stability and good governance, can transform a small and once more poor nation into a respected international partner. It is a reminder that the strength of a country does not come from size or military power, but from its wisdom in building trust, cooperation, and principled leadership. So, that's all from me, and thank you for watching my explanation video about Botswana.
Selamat berjuang. Terima kasih. Sukses.